Good morning, and I want to thank a big thank you out to all our members who have joined us for today's Member Day hearing. Folks, agriculture has a strong foundation in our nation's history. Agriculture started our nation. 85% of our founding fathers were farmers. That's what farming means to our great nation. Agriculture has been that foundation, and agriculture, our committee, has a proud history of working together across party lines to advance legislation needed to ensure that we continue to have thriving communities, but especially rural communities. Why do I say that? Our rural communities are the heart and the soul of our great nation, and most certainly the heart and soul of our agriculture industry. As a matter of fact, agriculture represents, out of our 50 states, 44 of our 50 states' largest part of their economy is agriculture. That lets you know the significance and importance of agriculture. And it is no secret that our farmers, our ranchers, and our rural communities across this country are facing serious challenges of all kinds. And we have a wonderful roster here on our Agriculture Committee, but I recognize that there is a wide number of other members who are not on our committee that certainly want to be heard, and we want to hear them to share with us what their ideas are. Folks, we've got some great challenges: climate change, rural broadband, the concerns and issues facing our black farmers, our disaster aid, crop insurance, our food security. All of these issues are here, and our agriculture is grappling with each of these as we speak. But as I said, we have other members that have issues as well, and we want to address those issues and make all of our members, both Democrats and Republicans, who want to help us to lead this nation in maintaining agriculture, not just as the dynamic industry that it is, but we want to ensure that our United States agricultural industry is always kept as the number one agriculture industry in the world. So I'm looking forward to the hearing, and with that, I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Thompson, for any opening remarks he'd like to make.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by thanking our fellow committee members for joining us today. It's an important opportunity to hear from you and to hear from all of our colleagues as the chairman said so well, on the very important issue of agriculture and all the things that are within the jurisdiction of this committee. My gratitude to those who are not members of this committee, but who have made agriculture a priority for joining us today. Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss if I didn't take this time to also reflect on the committee's work in the months ahead. The only legislation advanced through our committee so far during this Congress was the reconciliation instructions reported in February. And members on both sides of the aisle were shut out of that process, and many important, timely priorities for rural America were denied consideration. But the process and resulting policy product left much to be desired. Now, I think we will be hearing a similar message in testimony today, and this testimony must not only inform, but act as a guide to the future work of this committee. Mr. Chairman, this is an opportunity to course correct. The manner and process by which this committee conducts its business should reflect all the priorities and needs of our producers and rural families, and I'm so appreciative of all the members on both sides of the aisle that's going to give voice to those issues today. As a start, I'd like to suggest we invite Secretary Vilsack to testify before the committee. We're long overdue in our Farm Bill oversight, implementation, and implementation duties, and we're getting closer every day to defeating a virus that has decimated our farms, our families, our economy. And I'm certain that the Secretary has very much to say on both these topics. In fact, hearing views of the administration on so many matters is long overdue. This committee has barely scratched the surface of COVID-related matters, let alone anything related to the 2018 Farm Bill. So I'd like to ask that we invite the various agencies within the department, as well as the Farm Credit Administration and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, to participate in similar hearings. Their expertise is imperative to this committee's progress and success. Mr. Chairman, your commitment to doing so would mean so much to me, as well as our members and the communities we serve. And with that, I'm very pleased to welcome all of our colleagues this morning, and I look forward to their testimony, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, certainly. Thank you, Ranking Member Thompson. And you can rest assured, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do need to bring in farm credit. We need to bring in the futures industry. It's such an exciting and dynamic time for our wonderful world of agriculture, and we need the help of all these folks. So you can certainly count on me to be supportive of you in that request and your move. Now, I would like to welcome our colleagues who have joined us today to provide testimony on issues that are important to the nation, but specifically to their congressional districts. And we want to know how we can help you. Just, I believe we have Representative Byrd here from Indiana, Representative Henson from Iowa, Ms. Jennifer Gonzalez Collin from Puerto Rico, Representative Finstra from Iowa, and Representative Dusty Johnson from South Dakota, and I believe Representative Westerman from Arkansas, and Representative Malantoskis from New York. And there may be others, but we are excited to hear from you. Our staff is here taking very good notes because we have a wonderful staff. They're the ones that help us get the work done. So we're ready to begin. There were even more than the ones I mentioned wanted to be here with us this morning, and some are submitting their comments for the record. But each member that comes before us will be recognized for 5 minutes. And now I recognize the gentleman from Indiana, Representative Byrd. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Thompson, and my colleagues for providing this opportunity to speak today. I'm excited to sit before so many passionate and talented colleagues to share my vision and concerns for the direction of our esteemed panel. As we've seen so far in the early days of the 117th Congress, our country faces many challenges, and our policy is being shaped by significant political forces on both sides of the aisle. Much as my beloved Hoosier state has long been seen as the crossroads of America, I see plainly where our committee stands at the crossroads of this important policy challenges. That said, while I see great opportunity in the potential for agriculture and the broader whole of rural America to effect impactful change on these challenges, I at the present find myself dismayed at the direction this committee has taken in these early months. Many times, so far this year, I have found myself fearing that the storied tradition of bipartisanship that our committee has long been known for has been jeopardized as we hold meetings on niche partisan issues with partisan approaches. As we move forward with the remainder of this year and this Congress, it is my sincere hope that we will correct the course of our panel away from those spotlight mainstream partisan issues and refocus our attention on providing much-needed leadership to rural America, agricultural producers, and the critical importance of our nation's food systems. The administration, House and Senate leadership, and even the leadership of this committee have made clear that climate change mitigation is among the highest priorities of this Congress. This issue is a perfect example of a topic so easily corruptible by partisan and political rancor, but with so much potential for our mission if approached responsibly. As we assuredly move forward in addressing this sensitive and timely topic, we must focus on our efforts at developing real, impactful, and achievable solutions that encourage growth and steer away from some of the options that create burden and reduced efficiency. While there's a real risk that climate change policy could create many challenges for the agricultural industry, if addressed correctly, it could instead offer tremendous opportunity with multiple beneficiaries. Our goal should be to establish turnkey solutions, incentivize participation, and unlock the potential for science to aid in increased sustainability. We need to find and provide the tools that allow producers to work smarter, like improving rural connectivity that allows for increases in precision agriculture, which leads to increased yields with reduced inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, water, and fuel. We need to evaluate and retool our regulatory pathways to allow innovative products like feed additives that can reduce methane and other greenhouse gases created by livestock. Adopt new technologies like soy methyl ester sealants for roads and bridges that don't require replacement and they double the life of the concrete infrastructure, greatly reducing carbon emissions while providing demand for American soybeans. We need to give credit to farmers and ranchers for the good work they've already do to benefit our environment through good stewardship, conservation, and the greenhouse gases they sequester through the growing cycle. We need to facilitate the adoption of tools like methane digesters, like those used by the Fair Oaks Farms and Biotown Ag in my district, to turn animal and food waste into incredibly useful biogas that can be used for electricity and for transportation fuels. Of course, we need to look for more opportunities, both domestically and abroad, to increase adoption of biofuels like ethanol. With a Harvard study recently reported, offers a 46% reduction in greenhouse gases over the fuel additives they replace, all while rebuilding our rural economies and without decimating our fossil fuel industry. These are just a few of the examples of how to turn challenge into opportunity. But regardless of your pursuit of these and other solutions, it is my highest priority that whatever policies we adopt around this issue be producer-focused, accessible, and not punitive. Other key areas of importance for me this year include unwavering support for the critical safety net programs that keep producers in business, and our nation's food supply stable, protecting the Commodity Credit Corporation from being commandeered by the administration, expanding access to foreign markets to our agricultural goods, protecting our nation's biotech and scientific capabilities by stopping intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers to gain access to foreign markets like China, and shaping new regulatory pathways allowing innovative new products to come to the market and more accurately evaluating products already there. Only got about 30 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
All right, go right ahead. We'll give you that extra.
As we move forward with our work in Congress, I look forward to offering my passion and expertise to help bring real solutions to the challenges facing our nation. I look forward to working closely alongside each and every one of you as we work to serve America's farmers and ranchers and the whole rural of America. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Certainly. Thank you, Representative Byrd. An excellent testimony. Next, we will hear from Ms. Henson from Iowa. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Thompson as well for having me. Members of the committee, it's a pleasure to be with you today here on Member Day. I look forward to offering my ideas to some of the challenges faced by the agriculture sector in Iowa. I know we're well represented on the committee, but I know there are so many issues facing our rural communities, and I just wanted to add my voice to those issues today. Last month, I introduced the Precise Act, which is legislation that would make it easier for our farmers to access precision agriculture technology by allowing existing Farm Bill USDA programs like EQIP and CSP to cover precision ag tech. The legislation presents a farmer-focused solution to the very real challenges we face, and I hope it will continue to gain additional bipartisan support. I've heard from Iowans across the ag industry about how precision ag technology is key to increasing crop yields while simultaneously lowering our overall inputs, front-end costs to our farmers, and also positive environmental impacts. However, it's also extremely expensive to start using this precision ag technology, making it out of reach for many of our family farmers in Iowa. The Precise Act would expand access to this technology, including tools to connect a rural broadband for producers using these innovative strategies. Mr. Chair, I did appreciate your remarks about rural broadband as well. We should harness the knowledge and experience within the agriculture community to provide innovative solutions and be good stewards to our environment, and we can do that. Farmers don't just deserve to be at the table because the policies impact them. They deserve to be at the table because they have the valuable ideas and solutions that bureaucrats who have never set foot on a farm could ever imagine. So I hope we can work together to advance priorities like the Precise Act that encourage our farmers, our producers, and our rangers to truly innovate in what they do. Farmers in the heartland have solutions to more problems than just feeding the world. They help fuel it also through biofuel production. Biofuels are on hand and available right now to have a dramatic and positive impact on the nation's fuel supply, improving our energy security and minimizing environmental outputs at the same time. As we've seen over the last few weeks, our fuel supply is volatile and can be subject to national security threats. So, simple question, why not turn to our Iowa producers right now? They have the solution. It's critical that this committee hold the EPA accountable to maintain the integrity of the renewable fuel standard to maximize the benefit of biofuels. And before I close today with my remarks, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the lack of access and connectivity that many rural Iowans and Americans face each and every day. Rural Iowans deserve equitable access to essential services like broadband and healthcare, as well as rural community development and economic opportunity. Rural communities cannot continue to be left behind. Their voices matter. Their stories are important. We need to tell them here in Washington. And I look forward to working with all of you to ensure that they are heard as we continue to legislate here in Congress. And finally, I urge this committee to take up the Precise Act along with other legislation that will continue to support Iowa's farmers, ranchers, and biofuels producers. And I stand ready to work with this committee, my colleagues from Iowa, to support our agriculture sector back home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time today, and I yield back.
I just want to say, Representative Henson, that you are absolutely right, and this committee is with you 100% on the precision agriculture and our needs, and at the forefront, we are going to get broadband established. It is so critical. And I just wanted to give a powerful amen to that. And our staff is working on legislation to move us immediately. We had a great hearing on it. Excellent presentation, Representative Henson. And now we will hear from Representative Jennifer Gonzalez Collin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to participate in this member day. Thank you, Leader Thompson, for the opportunity. And as you know, Puerto Rico does not participate in the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP, like their counterparts in the states. DC, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands instead has the program, or NAP, which is capped block grant, typically funded at over $1.9 billion every year, and is currently serving over 1.5 million island residents. NAP is one of the top assistance programs for the needy constituents of the island. Similar to SNAP, NAP provides a monthly allotment meant to support a healthy and balanced diet. However, due to limited funding, NAP cannot automatically adjust to fluctuations in demand, including those related to emergencies, and provides less benefit to eligible participants. And I can tell you that because after the Hurricane Irma and Maria in 2017, the demand for NAP participation increased significantly. We noticed a similar pattern with the earthquakes that began in late 2018, and now with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It has become clear that NAP is one of the first programs my constituents turn to during the aftermath of an emergency or a crisis. Still, the program cannot automatically accommodate sudden increases in demand, and as a result, we have to turn to Congress on multiple occasions to secure emergency NAP funds. Additionally, the base block grant leaves my constituents with less benefits each month. For example, a household of one enrolled in NAP receive a maximum of $111.12 compared to a maximum monthly allotment of $234 in SNAP. Similarly, a household of two in NAP receive $216 compared to a maximum monthly allotment of $430 under SNAP. While I appreciate the support of my colleagues with ensuring Puerto Rico has enough NAP funds to cover benefits during those emergency periods, true relief and proper assistance can only be achieved with a transition of SNAP. This is my goal, and my office is working closely with the government of Puerto Rico and USDA to understand the implication of this transition and devise an appropriate plan for Puerto Rico to successfully operate SNAP. As such, I respectfully request you continue working alongside my office as we develop a path towards a viable transition to SNAP. And lastly, I would like to convey my full support for the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children, or WIC, which support nearly 100,000 constituents in Puerto Rico. And I am original co-sponsor of HR 2011, known as the WIC Act, which will expand eligibility and address specific gaps in nutritional assistance for postpartum women and young children. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much for your excellent testimony. And we hear your concerns about NAP and the fact that sometimes that money runs out. And we're going to be working with you on that. Excellent testimony there, Ms. Gonzalez-Khan. And now we will hear from Representative Finstra from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Thompson. Thank you for providing the opportunity for me to testify today. I want to call the committee's attention to the current market conditions facing cattle producers in Iowa and across the United States. Since August of 2019, there has been multiple extreme market disruptions to the cattle industry. The cattle processing facility fire in Holcomb, Kansas, and the supply chain disruption caused by COVID-19 have had serious impacts on the cattle market to the detriment of many of our cattle producers. As a result, we saw boxed beef prices dramatically increase while live cattle prices have decreased over the last year. In some cases, cattle producers were left without a market to sell their cattle and were responsible for higher costs to feed and care for the cattle until a market could be found. Over the past several weeks, we have again seen the price of boxed beef continue to increase while cattle prices remain stagnant. The gross packer margin on cattle has grown, but I continue to hear that cattle producers are struggling to even break even, to a point of losing approximately $100 to $120 a head for every one sold. There are a lot of factors contributing to the current market situation. We know that the 4 meat packer companies control over 80% of the cattle processing in the industry. This simple fact leaves the cattle industry particularly vulnerable to market disruptions. It also can leave cattle producers with few options to market their cattle if a packing facility has to reduce their processing capacity, which we saw with COVID, and now we hear a lot of packers saying that they don't have workers, which is causing a slowdown. In Iowa, I have heard from the producers concerned about the packers having a captive supply. Packers have purchased all the cattle they need through formula contracts whose details are not known to the public, and then those packers are not active in the market for a week. As a result, some cattle producers are left without a place to sell their cattle and must continue to cover the costs of feeding and caring for them as the commodity prices can soar. The issue highlights a growing discussion if there is enough cash negotiation taking place in the marketplace to ensure true price discovery and to allow cattle producers sufficient leverage in the cash negotiations. There are several legislative proposals that are being discussed about how to tackle this issue, and I believe it is a discussion that must take place prior to reauthorization of the livestock mandatory reporting. We also have heard that the labor shortages of COVID-19 precautions have impacted processors' ability to operate at full capacity. Again, this is a very serious problem as the cattle continue to back up. We should also take time to examine how we can assist small and medium-sized processors to create additional markets. These are just a few of the issues that I have been hearing contributing to the current situation facing our cattle producers. While there are several intertwined issues taking place, I believe it is our responsibility of this committee to examine what is going on and put forth solutions that will help remedy the state of the market to ensure family cattle producers can make a living and through their hard work. The time is to act now, and I hope, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Thompson, that you will commit to working with me toward hearing and examining the state of the market and putting forth solutions in the near future. I cannot tell you how crucial this is. We have current independent cattle producers that will probably not be in business in the next 6 months if we do not get this rectified. It seems that there is a captive market through the packers, and if you're not part of the packers, you're out in the cold. These are things that need to be looked at. Thank you, Ranking Member and Mr. Chair, for considering these options.
Well, thank you, Representative Fentra, and you've raised some very important issues that are of concern to me as well. Quite honestly, I have talked with several in the cattle industry about getting help to the small and medium-sized producers. But it's very interesting that you pointed out that some of our cattle producers are now losing up to $100 to $120 per head. And that is something that we look forward to helping and making sure our cattle industry is thriving. All right, thank you very much. Now we'll go to Mr. Dusty Johnson of Iowa. Mr. Johnson. Pardon?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. And as we talk about the priorities we want this committee to deal with this Congress, I do appreciate the opportunity to be heard. And I'm going to talk about two things today, the reopening of FSA offices and the cattle markets. Now, many of my colleagues have heard me talk about these things before, but they are really critically important. Now, the pandemic has put a ton of strain on these local FSA offices. It's not just the typical programs of the ARCs and the PLCs and the CRPs, but we had, obviously, disaster program, CFAP, which was new to producers, new to FSA offices, put just an unprecedented amount of work onto those offices. And the offices have been closed. Now, almost a year ago, the Trump administration laid out a data-driven reopening process that would use COVID metrics from that localized area to decide when offices could reopen. So we had a pathway to reopening. Many of these offices were moving in the right direction, and then we had the new administration reverse that, closing all of these offices, telling them that they could no longer take appointments. And given the workload that is out there, we've got to get these offices open back up. This committee has a constitutional duty to do oversight. This is the kind of meat and potatoes, blocking and tackling oversight that we should be conducting. We haven't had a hearing yet with administration officials to talk about operational issues related to producers, and I think we really should. So that's number one. Number two, I want to talk about the cattle markets. You know, most commodities have really rebounded pretty substantially since the earliest days of the pandemic. But cattle producers have been left behind in that rally. Now, for a lot of the commodities, it's a substantial increase in export demand, in some cases really incredible increase in export demand that has driven that. But again, the cattle guys have been left behind, and there is a tremendous amount of concern, uncertainty, and pain out in cattle country. And I just want to make sure that we understand this has got to be something we address at the committee level. Now, there are a few reasons for this. Number one, we do have serious labor shortages. That's a national problem across all industries. But when you don't have the workers able to show up at these packing plants, it substantially reduces the capacity. That has huge ripple impacts. Now, there are also some structural deficiencies, especially a lack of processing capacity. Even during the best of times, we don't have enough shackle space. And right now, what compounds this problem, and which a factor that is so many people in cattle country nervous, is we've got a developing drought, which is at really the worst time going to send a message to the market to draw down herd size, and it's going to cut into the growing season for grass, and that's going to be a real problem. So we had the USDA did an analysis, they did an investigation, they released, I guess you'd call it an interim report that analyzed the growing gap between box beef prices and what producers were getting on the hoof. And I thought it had some valuable insight. It showed that because of the pandemic, we had a 40% reduction in the processing capacity at the plants. And that choke point created very negative impacts on both ends, to both consumers and producers. Producers, your cow-calf folks were getting, or your feeders, were getting 18% less than they were before on already lousy prices. And then you had consumers who were paying, in some cases, 80% more for boxed beef. That choke point, that structural deficiency is a serious problem. So what do we do about it? Well, I introduced the Price Act, which has a number of things related to transparency, new risk management tools, the ability for small producers, processors to grow their market share, which I think would help. This committee, I think, deserves some praise in working some of those ideas. Already through this committee this year, we have leveled the playing field for small processors as they work to increase in overtime inspection. I think that was a great success, but we need to build on that. And I want to call out the fact that a recent meeting organized by the Livestock Marketing Association brought together leaders from American Farm Bureau, American Farmers Union, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, RCAF USA, and the U.S. Cattlemen. Now, these guys did something extraordinary. They agreed on three prongs that they can work together on. I'm supportive of all those prongs, and I want to share them with my colleagues here. Number one, let's reauthorize livestock mandatory reporting, and let's do that in a way that includes formula-based prices under the same reporting requirements. And also, let's get a contract library established. Number two, let's have the DOJ deliver a final report on all these market disruptions. And number three, let's encourage the investment of and the development of new independent, local, and regional packers. My Price Act deals with issues 1 and 3, and then earlier this week we released a letter that deals with issue 2. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. This is an incredibly important issue that I'm looking forward to addressing with the committee.
Well, thank you for that, Representative Johnson, and let me apologize to you. I've recognized you as being from Iowa, when in fact you represent the wonderful people of South Dakota. I'm sorry about
They get a lot better corn yields in Iowa, so if we could get that, that'd be just fine.
All right, there you go. Thank you. And an excellent presentation, and we look forward to working with you to address those concerns. Now, we will hear from Representative Westerman from Arkansas.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Thompson, for the opportunity to testify today. As Ranking Member of the House Natural Resources Committee, I enjoy working closely with both of you on our mutual goals of conserving the environment and ensuring the prosperity of rural America. Mr. Chairman, as you know, our nation is blessed with an abundance of natural resources. We have the responsibility to manage and utilize these resources in ways that allow them to flourish for future generations. And I firmly believe that the healthiest, most resilient environment and economy are ones that scientifically balance both the needs of the land with the needs of the people living connected to the land. True conservation utilizes innovative new approaches to maximize utility and access our lands while ensuring their long-term health. One piece of bipartisan legislation that exemplifies these principles of conservation and innovation is H.R. 2639, the Trillion Trees Act. It's a bill that I reintroduced this past April. The bill is endorsed by over 50 stakeholder organizations and has currently 96 bipartisan co-sponsors. My bill would improve our nation's forest lands and establish the U.S. as a leader in the global 1 Trillion Trees initiative by incentivizing improved regeneration, management, and utilization of our forests. Studies show planting and restoring 1 trillion trees globally would sequester 205 gigatons of carbon. That's an amount equivalent to 2/3 of the carbon released since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We currently have over 400 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, and the American people are demanding that Congress take practical action to address this issue. Natural climate solutions like the Trillion Trees Act are key to our future as we seek common sense, innovative ways to address atmospheric carbon. House Natural Resources Republicans held a forum on the bill in celebration of Arbor Day, where representatives from Walmart, the National Wildlife Federation, the National Alliance of Forest Owners, and University of Idaho testified in strong support of the bill. During this forum, witnesses highlighted both the economic and carbon storing benefits of sustainable forest products and global reforestation initiatives. As this committee works to identify practical, pro-growth carbon solutions, I hope that the House Agricultural Committee will hold an official hearing on the Trillion Trees Act. Additionally, I would like to highlight several bills which were included in the Trillion Trees Act, but were also introduced as standalone pieces of legislation referred to this committee. The first is H.R. 2477, the Urban Forest Act of 2021, a bipartisan bill introduced by Representative Malliotakis from New York. Urban forests are important sources of carbon sequestration and sequestered nearly 130 million tons of carbon in 2018. The Urban Forest Act of 2021 would enhance and maintain these forests while helping create new jobs focused on new wood products and forest management.
Because it deals with
H.R. 2500, the Forest Tech Improvement Act, introduced by Representative Moore of Utah, aims to improve the pace and scale of reforestation efforts via new technologies like drones and advanced GIS mapping technologies. Third, H.R. 2526, the SOS for Seedlings Act, introduced by Representative Bentz, addresses the significant U.S. seedling shortage by providing critical direction to the U.S. Forest Service to develop a comprehensive seedling strategy and increasing resources for federal, state, tribal, local, and private nurseries. If the United States is to both become a global leader in reforestation and address the reforestation needs driven by catastrophic wildfire, we must dramatically scale up our current U.S. nursery capacity. Last but not least is H.R. 2581, the Biochar Act. introduced by Representative Harrell. Biochar is an emerging carbon sequestration tool with exciting potential to sequester carbon from biomass for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Biochar, which is produced by heating biomass in the absence of oxygen, also has a litany of other environmental benefits ranging from improved forest health and resiliency, agricultural productivity, environmental remediation, water quality improvement and retention, and improved soil health. This bill would create new demonstration projects for biochar to improve its commercialization, as well as new applied research and development programs to test its applicability in a variety of sectors. To quote something Ranking Member Thompson frequently says, the 2018 Farm Bill was the greenest farm bill in history. I believe that if we don't pass these bills as standalone beforehand, the inclusion of the True and Trees Act and the additional bills I mentioned can help make the 2023 Farm Bill even greener and provide a benefit to both the environment and the economy. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today. Again, as Ranking Member of the Natural Resources Committee, I'm committing to working with you to advance meaningful bipartisan conservation and forestry legislation that will improve the lives of Americans across the nation. Thank you, and I yield back.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Representative Westerman. And your comments are quite timely, as you know. Dealing with climate change is one of this committee's foremost issues, and the foresters play a very important role in that. Many people may not know that Georgia is the #1 state for privately owned forest lands. And so I'm very much aware of the vital role that our forestry friends have played over the years, but none more than right now as we're grappling with carbon sequestration and dealing with how we make sure that we are able to deal adequately with agriculture at the forefront of this nation's policies dealing with climate change. Next, we will hear from Ms. Malio Taskis. I hope I got that right, from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Thompson, and also thank you to Congressman Westerman, who really set up my opportunity to speak perfectly by also plugging my bill, the Urban Forest Act. I would like to thank this opportunity to come before you today and present my testimony regarding a bipartisan piece of legislation that I introduced, H.R. 2477, the Urban Forest Act. Urban forests are important sources of carbon sequestration, as was just mentioned by you, Mr. Chairman, and have already sequestered nearly 130 million metric tons of carbon in 2018. In addition to carbon sequestration, urban forests also provide numerous other benefits to communities, including job creation, reduction in air pollution, and stormwater runoff, mitigation of heat island effect, and reductions in home energy costs for consumers. This multitude of benefits means that for every $1 invested in urban forestry, it can provide $2 to $4 in return. So how can we take advantage of these benefits? Well, my bill creates a competitive matching grant program based on the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree City USA program to enhance and maintain urban forests, particularly for communities with low tree and environmental equity. Supports local job creation through Job Corps by establishing civilian conservation centers in urban areas to teach important technical skills related to urban forestry. It creates a new pilot project that incentivizes innovative products made from urban wood sources and adds carbon sequestration as a goal of Forest Service's Urban and Community Forestry Program and to the 10-year Urban Forestry Action Plan. This bill also reauthorizes the National Urban and Community Forestry Advisory Council. It increases the authorization of appropriations for the Urban and Community Forestry Program to $50 million for 5 years. It also improves data collected on urban forests through the Forest Inventory and Analysis Program and coordinates existing urban forestry programs and research areas between different departments and agencies. At a time when we are really seeking to work in a bipartisan fashion on this issue of climate change, this is one particular bill which I'm very proud to have the co-sponsors from east to west of our country, from Alaska to Hawaii. It is co-sponsored by Reps. Sanford Bishop of Georgia, Bruce Westerman of Arkansas, Don Young of Alaska, Kurt Schrader of Oregon, Joe Morelli of New York, and Ed Case of Hawaii. We have 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans currently co-sponsoring this bill with me, and I welcome all the members on the committee to please add their names, and I would really strongly urge and appreciate if you could help, Mr. Chairman, to move this through the committee process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Congress lady, and you're very right. And I think your bill is getting good traction. I'm well aware of it, and we look forward to working with you on the Urban Forest Act, House Bill 2471. And
77.
Pardon me. Yes.
2477, and Mr. Chairman, I would love if you would consider sponsoring it yourself as well. Thank you so much for your time.
2477. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And that goes with our no-till farming, our cover crops. These are things that we in agriculture can do and take the lead in bringing down so much carbon in the air and getting it back in the ground where we need it. So thank you for that, and look forward to seeing this bill move. Next we have, I believe, Representative Cahaley from Hawaii.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Chairman Scott. Aloha, members, Ranking Member Thompson, and members of the Committee on Agriculture. Mahalo for hosting today's Bipartisan Member Day hearing. Mr. Chairman, agriculture in Hawaii is its 3rd largest industry, consisting of predominantly small, family-owned operations that generate more than $1 billion in revenue annually. These operations create businesses and job opportunities and help keep our rural communities vibrant. Hawaii leads the nation in the production of coffee, Kona coffee, macadamia, ginger root, pineapples, bananas, taro, passion fruit, and our floriculture industry generates more than $85 million in revenue each year. Island geography, both within and between the islands, restricts businesses in various ways related to the economics of operations. Fixed costs as a percentage of revenue are higher: transportation, labor, energy, land, input, and other operating expenses. Tropical and subtropical agriculture and year-round growing seasons make it very challenging to control insects, weeds, funguses, and plant diseases. And while many farmers embrace integrated pest management techniques, some are compelled to purchase expensive synthetic controls to limit crop losses from noxious species. Separation from land-grant universities and federal research and development laboratories further inhibits acquiring new and innovative technologies in a timely manner. Additionally, federal food programs such as the Women, Infant, and Children Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program have been invaluable. Still, much can be done to address the concerns and needs of Hawaii's and our nation's agricultural rural communities. To address Hawaii's pressing agriculture needs, I first asked the committee to modernize federal agriculture research facilities and commit to a business plan to address land-grant university research infrastructures. Our Hawaii research facilities at the Daniel K. Inouye Pacific Basin Agriculture Research Center in my hometown of Hilo and the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, otherwise known as CTAR, are crucial in controlling tropical agriculture insects, weeds, funguses, and plant diseases. Second, I asked the committee to examine ways to simplify the application process for small producers under the micro grants for food security program and increase the authorization level for the MGFSP to 20 million. Third, I asked the committee to expand food hubs, food banks, community support agriculture, and food pantries in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Hawaii, these programs provided fresh fruits, vegetables, and protein to consumers in need, but they also help stabilize local farms by creating a demand for produce. Given Hawaii's small-scale farm operations, food hubs, CSAs, and other outlets, which are very critical as food producers to sell their crops at a fair market price. Lastly, as Congress works to reauthorize the Farm Bill in 2023, I asked the committee to establish in the 2023 Farm Bill a program dedicated to area-wide integrated pest management. AIPM techniques are the basis of the successful coffee berry borer program. I will continue communicating Hawaii's priorities with the committee on the 2023 Farm Bill. I look forward to working with all of you. I wish I was on the Agriculture Committee, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully, if I get to come back, I get another chance. But I look forward to working with you to strengthen our nation's farm programs. I just want to mahalo all of you for your commitment to helping our farmers throughout the nation and in the Hawaiian Islands. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Representative Kahele, for your excellent presentation, and we would certainly enjoy having you on our Agriculture Committee. And I think you made some very good points there. And as you know, our 1890s, our land grant, colleges and universities are playing a vital role, and we would certainly look favorably on your efforts to be included with your land grant universities that you mentioned in Hawaii. And the food banks, we can't say enough for how they're responding to this. And we are, as you know, had a hearing on food security and had our food banks in, and we're going to be doing more to make sure our Feeding America is very much inclusive with Hawaii. So I think next we have Representative Lawson from the great state of Florida and a graduate of one of our land grant schools, as I am my friend and fellow alumni from the great Florida A&M University.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be with you today. To you, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member Thompson, I want to thank y'all for your leadership on the Agriculture Committee. Today I would like to address, Mr. Chairman, two bills that I have introduced that falls under the Committee of Jurisdiction, and I'm asking for a swift passage. And the first one, Mr. Chairman, is the Student Food Security Act of 2021. That's HR 3100. Sadly, in every corner and almost every community around the nation, families are impacted by food insecurity. I heard you talk about it a few minutes ago. I have been diligent in finding solutions to eradicate hunger. One of the most important ways to tackle hunger in this country is by focusing on how it impacts various subpopulations of our communities, such as veterans, seniors, and college students. This is why for the past two Congresses, I have introduced the College Student Hunger Act, and why this year I am proud to be a lead co-sponsor with Congresswoman Hayes and Congressman Norma Torres for the Student Food Security Act. A recent Government Accountability Office report revealed that more than 30% of college students might face food insecurity, and I know this for a fact. The report also found that almost 2 million at-risk students are potentially eligible for SNAP benefits in 2016. The non-traditional college students are now the traditional college students, and we need to have just as much concern for our community college and part-time students as we do with our large four-year universities. The bill removed barriers to low-income college students in accessing SNAP benefits by expanding the eligibility criteria. The bill also enabled the federal government, state colleges, and universities to take a more proactive role in providing outreach and support to food insecurity students. HBCUs and other minority serving institutions would also receive priority. I've had the opportunity to visit food pantries on university campus and see not only do they distribute food to a lot of students, but they even show a lot of them how to prepare the food, which is so critically important. I urge the committee to take up this bill because it would do a great deal in helping a lot of low-income students and non-traditional students that we have on campus today. The Apex Act, which is one HR 2698, I have introduced the Bipartisan Aluminum Pricing Examination Act for the second time in Congress because of the aluminum market have experienced unprecedented cost fluctuating that are disconnected from market fundamentals since the beginning of 2018. The bill anomaly stems from pricing spikes in sold reference prices on each user of sheet aluminum, the Midwest Premium, I call it the MWP. The MWP is intended to serve as a shipping and handling cost for transporting aluminum for a producer to the end user, has more than doubled since the beginning of 2018. The unforeseeable price variation has added hundreds of millions of dollars, and the cost to the end user to increase the prices of sodas, beer, and other household goods for our constituents. The Apex Act grant the Commodities Future Trading Commission proper statutory authority to conduct oversight of an investigating prices setting and reducing entities in the aluminum market. The Apex also provided the Department of Justice the ability to consult with the CFTC to ensure all oversights and regulatory action are in accordance with the antitrust statute. Additionally, the legislation affords the Attorney General the opportunity to formally comment on the proposed CFTC regulation action and guideline. Nothing in this legislation, and I want to repeat again, nothing in this legislation allows for pricing setting by the government. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring this before the committee.
Well, thank you, Congressman Lawson. You mentioned in your presentation that 30% of students face food insecurity. Could you tell me what that study was again?
It was a recent Government Accountability Office report. And so I would have to get that information back to you. I had this information on hand from the last time, and I thought it was very significant, and I probably didn't write the study down, but I would get the study to you.
And you also mentioned...
It was a Government Accountability Office study.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. It might be helpful to us because I think this supports your HR 3100, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and it impacts and deals with particularly hunger facing our veterans, our seniors, and college students.
That's correct.
All right, very good. I think that is something we need to move swiftly on and get that that study would be very helpful in boosting and making sure we get your bill moving. So look forward to working with you on that. Now we will hear from Representative Ronnie Jackson from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Republican Leader Thompson for holding this hearing today and giving members like myself a chance to have their voices heard. I just want to reiterate as well, I've talked to Ranking Member Thompson about this before, sir, but I too someday want to be in the near future at the first opportunity. I would like to be on the committee as well. I've made that a priority of mine during my time in Congress, however long that should be. Anyways, as you know, sir, agriculture issues are a top priority for me and my constituents as I represent the #1 ag district in the state of Texas and the 6th overall ag district in the United States. Texas' 13th congressional district is a top producer of cattle, cotton, wheat, dairy, and much more. And I could not be prouder to speak on behalf of the farmers and ranchers who make that possible in my district. Unfortunately, these hardworking Americans have battled numerous hardships over the past few years due to tariff issues, market turmoil, disruptions caused by COVID-19, and most recently, the disastrous weather events like the polar vortex that struck Texas earlier this year.
I think, yeah, check your mute.
Sorry about that, sir.
Good.
In an effort to help farmers recover from these natural disasters, I introduced H.R. 1692, the Restore Act, with my friend and colleague, Representative Henry Cuellar. This bipartisan legislation would reauthorize the Wildfire Hurricane Indemnity Program, the WIP program, for 2020 and 2021, and would expand the program to cover crop losses due to freezes and polar vortexes. This bill would also increase coverage for droughts to ensure that all droughts are covered as natural disasters under the WIP program, a provision that will immensely help cotton producers across the country. Mr. Chairman, I come before the committee today to urge consideration for the Restore Act to help extend a valuable lifeline for the men and women who tirelessly work to feed our great nation. This is an excellent opportunity to foster bipartisanship and to support our farmers throughout this tumultuous time. I want to thank you again for holding this hearing and for allowing me to be present during this legislation, for me to present this legislation before your committee. I look forward to working with each of you on these issues in a bipartisan and effective manner. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Jackson. And your Restore Act, let me just tell you, this is an issue that we are grappling with on committee as I speak. Disaster aid is so critical. And we, as everyone knows, I'm trying to put together an effort to create a separate immediate disaster aid fund so it doesn't have to go through the regular appropriations process. It just takes too long. And many of our farms are done away with because we move too slow. And so we are working on a bill to set up a permanent disaster aid that is already there, that we can get help down to our farms in their time of need. And we saw what happened in your great state of Texas. This climate is causing us to really come up with our challenges here. So look forward to it, and you too would be welcome to join our committee, and we'll speak out at the rate we're going. We may have to expand our numbers, Ashley, but we welcome you. I often tell everybody this is our single most important committee. It's the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the water we drink, and our shelter. We can do without a lot of things, but we cannot do without food, water, clothing, and our shelter. So, Madam, is that anyone else? Oh, okay. Before we adjourn, let me just ask, is there anyone else that may have come in we missed in here? This has been wonderful, and we appreciate it. But before we adjourn, I want to invite our ranking member to make any closing remarks that he'd like to make, and look forward to hearing from our ranking member. Ranking Member Thompson, you're recognized.
Chairman, thank you so much. Thank you to all of the members that testified. We heard from 10 members today with their verbal testimony, and quite frankly, they touched on a lot of important issues that are facing rural America, facing our farmers and our ranchers, our food processors, all those within the agriculture supply chain. So, Mr. Chairman, I think we've got a lot of good information, some very specific bills that have been introduced that are within our jurisdiction, which is exciting as well, that tackles and takes on many of these issues. So I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you certainly to all of the members who took the time to prepare and to present and to share with our committee. I think this informs us going forward, so that we can proceed and continue our shared passion and goal to do our very best for rural America and for the folks who provide us our food, our feed, and our fiber. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Well, thank you, Ranking Member, and I agree with you 100%. It's been a very, very thoughtful, good presentations, and we got some great members out there, both on the committee and those that, as you see, Mr. Chairman, and heard, there are others who want to be on this committee with us. And so we certainly welcome that. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time. Our staff has been here recording and making sure that your inputs have been heard. And we certainly stand ready to help each of these members in the forward progress of their issues and their concerns, because they're all of our concerns. And so with that, under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 calendar days to receive supplementary material from any member who testified or offered written testimony today. So now this hearing of the Committee on Agriculture is adjourned.